It's going to be copy-paste. Books are, not good. Win total's a tick too low. Knock it right over. Mixed playoff price, tick too juicy. Bang it out. Postseason comes around on a tee. Knock their heads off.
I don't think the Steelers organization just makes a move to make a move. They have to have, it's like being in the book. You have to know what you're going to move the line to.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Talk about it failing and always putting the square peg into the round hole. We're going to run it. We're going to try and play these lower scoring games. They didn't score over 17 points in the 5 straight losses.
There's a chance for the Ravens to exercise every single demon on their way to a Super Bowl. But it also means the path is very difficult and things are only getting started.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Happy Friday, everyone. Joe Madden here. This is Game Time Decisions. I'm joined by Tom Vecchio over here on the grid. We've got a loaded day out there on the hardwood, plus some action on the ice. And of course, we're going to be breaking down this weekend's divisional matchups, everything that's happening out there. So we're going to jump right into it. Tom, how's your day been treating you so far?
I'm doing good. Of course, we have a loaded day today. Like you said, a loaded weekend of football. It's a great time to be a sports fan. There's so much to get to. We obviously have a number of guests joining us over the next few hours to break down a little bit of golf action with Brady Cannon. We're going to get Mark Zinno in here for NBA and NFL, maybe a look at the college game on Monday, the championship. I'm ready to get rolling. Let's start on the hardwood with some NBA tonight.
Yeah, let's start on the hardwood. There's some great games out there. We have a total of 9 NBA games today. It kicks off at 7:10 Eastern with the matchup between the Orlando Magic and the Boston Celtics. Now, the Boston Celtics, a large favorite in this one, Tom. They're laying 14.5 points, and we're seeing that total sit around 213.5. You're actually going to have to lay some juice to the over in this matchup. I'm leaning for this one to go over that total. Do you have any looks in this matchup here at all?
The Celtics are just getting too much credit. And granted, like, we know that they're awesome, but they're just not covering these large spreads. So, a Magic team that's a little bit desperate, obviously, given the injury situation that they've had over the past few seasons, past few months, obviously, with Banchero coming back. The Magic have to put up a fight in this one, considering where they are in the standings. And yeah, the Celtics have been super up and down as of late, like win one, lose one. I can't lay 14.5 in a regular season game. So give me the Magic in this one. I would say this one tends towards the over, but I'm not super in love with it.
I love to hear that you believe in magic, Tom. I didn't know that about you, but it's going to be a good night in that game. And then the next game kicking off at 7:40 will be the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now they're taking on the New York Knicks. The Knicks rolling in as the favorite here at home, laying 4.5 points. Now looking at that total, the total is a 219. And we've seen a little bit of movement in this line. They were a 5.5 point favorite, the New York Knicks, originally in this one. And we did see them beat the Minnesota Timberwolves by 26 26 points back in December. I do think Anthony Towles will come out nice and strong in this matchup. I'm expecting him to be able to hit his threes. So when I look at this game, I really do think the Knicks have every ability to win and cover that spread at home. I'm going to look at Karl Anthony Towles for his threes tonight. Now, you can take him for 2+ threes, Tom. That's coming in at -145, but I love firing up to 3+ threes. That's coming in at +200. I just think he has so much ability. I don't think the Minnesota Timberwolves will have an answer for him, and he's going to be shooting a lot from the edge. So even though the Timberwolves have a strong defense, they're stronger for the 2-pointers than they are from those deep balls. So give me Karl Anthony Towles here.
So I don't mind that. I really like Julius Randle tonight. Obviously, his return to the Garden. His points prop has been moving around a little bit. It's back at 19.5. It was up at 20.5 earlier. It's at 19.5, -115 to the over. Obviously, returning to the Garden is something that we're not just, Randle specifically returning to the Garden or any player, but just going up against his former team at that home for his former team is something that I love. And Randle legitimately is going to be taking his normal, 15, 16 field goal attempts on a nightly basis. I want to see him push that a little bit higher. Obviously, he wasn't super happy with the trade over the summer with Towns going to the Knicks in place of Randle, but over 19.5 -115, I can get behind that in Julius Randle. A little bit of revenge narrative. I also kind of like him for first basket tonight if you want to get a little bit crazy.
Ooh, that first basket prop, something I don't play enough, Tom. I love looking at that market when someone mentions it. So I'm going to tail you on that. We have, like I said, 9 games out there. You don't have to bet on every game, but one game that I'm feeling pretty certain on is a fade of my Toronto Raptors. My Toronto Raptors tonight, 11.5-point dog versus the Milwaukee Bucks, and it just doesn't feel like enough points here for the Milwaukee Bucks. I expect them to run away with this game. The Toronto Raptors have been absolutely struggling, to say the least, this season, and I don't trust them here to come out against this fast-paced, high-scoring offense of the Milwaukee Bucks. I think the Raptors fall flat tonight. Anything in this one for us, Tom?
I don't. Didn't the Raptors, they just won the other night against the Celtics, right? Isn't that the game that we spoke about when we did our sports millions picks and Jakob Poeltl went over on the rebound? So, maybe this is a bit of a letdown game for them after, a huge win against a great team. 11.5 points probably isn't enough going up against the Bucks. And, ultimately, the Raptors are what they are. A 2-game win streak, I think, is more of a flash in the pan rather than a sign of things to come for the Raptors. So I think it would be Bucks in this game.
Yeah, it's got to be the Bucks, and I'm willing to lay the 11.5, Tom. Like I said, I just don't trust the Raptors at all out here on the court. And, Poeltl looked really strong. He's so strong at getting those rebounds. So if you want to look at his rebound props tonight, I think it is a solid way to go. I think the big man's going to give it all he has out there, but I just don't see them being able to do enough and get enough baskets in there. Barrett is strong. Scotty Barnes is strong. Scotty Barnes is really strong for those assists, but I don't trust them. One team I kind of trust and one player I kind of trust, though, tonight, looking at the New Orleans Pelicans coming out here versus the Utah Jazz. The Jazz are 11-point dog as well. So a lot of big dogs on the slate tonight. This one has a total of 231. The Pelicans, it's -650 on the money line. I don't know who's backing that. There's -700s out there as well. But Zion Williamson back in the lineup for the Pelicans. I do think he comes out nice and strong in this one, Tom. We look at the Jazz. This defense is allowing, 117.6 points per game? Zion Williamson should be able to go over his point total. That's 23.5. What are your thoughts on him?
I think that's fine. I'm seeing 22.5 for his points. So, of course,
nice.
Shot for the best line available. I see 22.5 -106 to the over. This game, when I'm looking at it, McCollum, kind of like I'm under 19.5 points. It is sitting at -128. It's a little bit of juice there. Getting Zion back into the offense after he's been, he's suspended for a game, whatever it might be, but getting him going in the offense as kind of their main engine in the offense, I think is a little bit more important than DeJounte Murray or CJ McCollum taking a few extra shots. I would like to see those shots go to Zion. So Zion over, McCollum under in what is ultimately a pretty easy matchup for them.
Okay, I like where you're going there. I'm not sure if you have anything with the Denver Nuggets. They're taking on the Miami Heat tonight. Miami coming in as a dog at home. You know I love a home dog, Tom. They're plus 124 straight up on the money line, or you could grab them plus the 2.5. I love what we've seen with Tyler Hero out there on the court for them. You can look at his points tonight. This one has a total of 227.5, and I'm kind of on the fence if I'm going to get there with the over, because I do believe the Heat will be able to put up the points tonight. I don't think the Nuggets will be able to slow him down, and Jokic a game time decision here for them. Any thoughts on Denver and what we're going to see out of them versus the Miami Heat tonight?
Well, I would love to know if Jokic is playing, and we should note that Jimmy Butler is expected to play and is expected to start. Obviously, tumultuous time there in Miami for Jimmy Butler. So I don't mind looking to a Jimmy Butler prop, but I'm not thrilled with this game, like having 230 total points, especially if Jokic doesn't play. So kind of just up in the air for me right now.
Yeah, when we look at Jimmy Butler, his point total tonight, you guys, is sitting at 15 plus points at plus 100 if you want to jump on him. Bam Adebayo coming in at 15 plus at minus 140. And then Tyler Hero, I really do like him for the 25 plus points coming in at plus 100. I think you can ult it 30 plus at plus 260. But Tom Vecchio and myself will be back in the next couple of minutes here on Good Time Decisions. We'll see you after the break.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Game Time Decisions over here on the grid. I'm Joe Madden. I'm joined by Tom Vecchio. We started that NBA slate and we will come back to it. But Tom, we've got some NHL on the board today. We've only got 2 games out there, but still a lot of ways for us to make some money. So the Vegas Golden Knights will be taking on the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Pittsburgh Penguins are taking on the Buffalo Sabres. Let's jump into this first matchup here. 7:09 Eastern, the puck will drop between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Carolina Hurricanes. This one has a total of 5.5, and the juice has been ticking up as the day's gone on. It was right around -120 to the over earlier in the day. It's now -130 over the 5.5. I still think it's a solid way to go. I want to hear what you're looking at in this one. We've also got the Canes, the favorite at home, at -152.
Yeah, I'm looking at the over on this game. Kochekov in net for the Canes has been okay this year. He's had some like really up and down games for, I'm gonna say, like the quality of prospect that he is or was. Like we have seen some really shaky games from him, dating back even before he got injured, like giving up 3-4 goals to the Blue Jackets. Granted, they are much better now than they were at that point in the season, but it's just a level of inconsistency that I just don't trust. I think the Canes are a good team overall, but the offense on both teams should shine. So over 5.5, I think, is absolutely the play in that game. When it comes to the Pens at the Sabres, also, you can find the number at 6 or 6.5, whatever it might be. Over the 6 is where I got it. That's obviously a little bit safer. You just get the push if it ends 6. But specifically in that game, Sidney Crosby, over 2.5 shots on goal. It's sitting at -120. He's coming off a game where, he had 0 shots. I just like buying into good players in bounce back spots. The Pens, they're absolutely reeling right now. They need to start picking up wins if they're going to stay in the wild card race, and it's going to come from the great Sidney Crosby. So give me him over 2.5 shots tonight. What do you got?
Oh, I love that you're going there with Sidney Crosby, because I actually think he can get those points on the board tonight as well. I looked at Sidney Crosby for 2+ points in this matchup versus the Buffalo Sabres. I just don't trust the Sabres defensively. That's what it comes down to in this one, Tom. And we look at this team and such high hopes for this team with Lankakin in goal that maybe this team could finally make that push to get into the playoffs. This team hasn't been there in 14 seasons. So definitely heartbreaking there in Buffalo. They just can't get things done. This team is used to not getting into the playoffs, and I don't think things change. They're just sitting looking inside out of that wild card spot, and now they're -118 favorite here at home. I don't love that either. I find a struggle here to bet the Buffalo Sabres. I know Tage Thompson has really been stepping up, but it's a hard one for me. I looked at this game and I thought both teams to score in the first period. We know both of these teams have struggles in net. Tristan Jarry for the Penguins has been sent down to the AHL, which was a complete shocker for me, but he hasn't been stepping up this season. And then Nedeljkovic in net. I do think both of these teams will look to get up in that first period. Do you ever bet the both teams to score in the first period? Because it's coming in tonight at +162. You could take the over 1.5, but it's -130, Tom. I don't like laying that kind of juice.
Yeah, I mean, the both teams to score, especially when we're dealing with, it's a different how you want to approach it. Like, are we having 2 high-powered offenses that we potentially have with the Canes in Vegas, or we just have 2 bad defenses as we do with Pittsburgh and Buffalo? So, over 1.5 obviously is the safer play, but you do have to lay that juice, like you said. And if you don't want to do that, I'm totally on board with that. Both teams to score, you get that nice plus money. Not expecting much out of, not just Nedeljkovic, but just the Pens defense overall. And then the Sabres have been a complete mess this entire year. So both teams to score at +162. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's go there with that one. And I know that you said you like the over 5.5 with Vegas and the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah.
I think that one has a possibility of going to overtime too. With us both liking the over, I'm liking the overtime. Is there any players that you're looking at that you've really circled in this game to come out nice and strong? Because Jordan Staal here of the Canes has been really strong as of late. He's scored in 3 of the last 4. We've had Barbashev on the other side. So playmakers on both sides of the puck here.
Yeah, I haven't dug into too many player props for this game. We have too many options, and it gets to a certain point where I don't always know where the shots are going to be funneled, which is the main market that I bet for NHL, besides money lines, or regulation money lines, I should say. Sometimes we just don't know where the shots are going to be funneled, where Marty Necas started off the year super strong for the Canes. He's kind of cooled off since then. We see some up and down games from Svechnikov, where I think he should be a high volume shooter every single night, but that just doesn't always appear to be the case. The safest answer would just be going to Sebastian Aho, their top line center. Just get 3 shots on goal. It's what he should be doing. So Aho over 2.5 at -102 is probably the best bet that I would go for the Canes tonight.
Okay, I love where you're going there with Sebastian Aho. He's been so strong on the ice. I want to throw something at you. Something that I normally don't bet over on FanDuel, but because I'm seeing the goals come in, it's a Friday out up there on the ice, and we know not a lot of defense is played on a Friday. There's the Alt Daily total goals scored, Tom. So when we look at both of these games, this is the sum of both of those games. Do you think we could get 13 plus goals tonight? Because 13 plus is coming in at +106. You can't go under 13. You're going to lay juice.
Right.
Then
right.
14
I'm looking at now,
plus is +164.
So the Sabres Pens, I already said it like over 6. So if we get over 6, pushes it to 7. 3-3, you get that 4th. So it's 7 goals there, 4-3 final. Doesn't matter who wins that game. I just don't know. And then the other game is 5.5. If it pushes to 6, we'd be sitting at 7 and 6. It gets to 13. Maybe we get that 1 extra goal. I could see 13. Obviously, like you said, the -162 for 12 plus goals is pretty reasonable given the fact of what we should be seeing. But 13, I think I'm on board with.
Yeah, I like the 13 as well. +106 to the 13 plus goals on both games on the ice combined, you guys. If you want to fire that up to 14 plus at +164, not a terrible look. Tom, just quick, we're coming up against a break. What's your favorite bet out there on the ice tomorrow? Because I know you've already circled one twice.
Yeah, that's getting in early on the Devils to win in regulation, or the 3-way money line. It was sitting at -130. They're coming off, I want to say, a little bit of a tough loss last night to the Leafs. The Flyers coming off a win against the Isles. I just don't think the Flyers are a good team, and the Devils at home, I'll take them early. It's at 12:30 Eastern start.
Okay, you guys, we're going to come back and we're going to talk some more action out there on the hardwood and get you up to date with that. And then we'll have Mark Zinno joining us after the next break. So make sure you don't go anywhere. Tom Vecchio and myself breaking it all down here over on the grid. So we'll be back in the next couple minutes.
It's going to be copy-paste. Books are not good. Win total's a tick too low. Knock it right over. Make playoff price tick too juicy. Bang it out. Postseason comes around on a tee. Knock their heads off.
I don't think the Steelers organization just makes a move to make a move. They have to have, it's like being in the book. You have to know what you're going to move the line to.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Talk about it failing and always putting the square peg into the round hole. We're going to run it. We're going to try and play these lower scoring games. They didn't score over 17 points in the 5 straight losses.
There's a chance for the Ravens to exercise every single demon on their way to a Super Bowl. But it also means the path is very difficult and things are only getting started.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Game Time Decisions over here on the grid. It's time to jump in to some Sports Millions pick'ems. Tom, we've got great divisional matchups this weekend. I know we're going to jump into this matchup here with the Eagles versus the Rams. Start looking at some higher or lowers for our Sports Millions picks. Firstly, I want to know, what are you expecting out of this game? We know everyone seems to be really low on Jalen Hurts and the Eagles after what we saw last week, even though they were able to get the win, and lots of hype over the Rams with what they were able to do versus the Minnesota Vikings. But are you expecting both of these teams to come out similar to how they did last weekend?
I'm not expecting a whole lot of points overall in this game. So that's where like a lot of things start with me. Is just, what am I expecting overall for the game script, the game flow? Eagles, obviously, they like to run the ball. Not expecting a whole lot of passing from them. Obviously, we kind of saw that on display last week with A.J. Brown with just the 10 yards. Hurts looked okay last week. From the Rams side of things, we know where the ball should be going ultimately. Like, it should be going to Kyron Williams, it should be going to Puka Nacua, and it should be going to Cooper Kupp. Granted, he didn't have a huge game last week against the Vikings. But with that said, the Eagles are a very, very tough defense. Combined with the weather that we could be seeing in that game, this leads me to Puka Nacua lower than 86.5 receiving yards. And I know, people might be looking back at the game that they had in week 12 and say, wow, he torched them for 117 yards. But the Eagles defense is much better to close out the season, than they were at the middle portion of the season. So I just don't know if we're going to be seeing a ton of yards go to one specific player for the Rams this weekend. I just can't get behind essentially pushing to 90 yards for Puka Nacua when the Eagles defense is tightening up as the year has gone on. They've held TJ McLaurin in check for the majority when we date back to the regular season. Obviously, they played the Cowboys, and the Cowboys were at full health. They didn't have CeeDee Lamb, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm just not expecting a whole lot of passing in this game from either team.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a hard ask here, right? Looking at the weather here, Matt Stafford, we've seen all of those trends with him in very cold weather like he'll be facing here. We're going to have that snow. So I love where you're going with Puka Nacua, even though I don't like betting a lot of lowers. I think it is the way to lock in from him. When I was looking at this matchup, I really do think Jalen Hurts, even though he wasn't looking 100% in that last game, will come out stronger in this. I'm leaning towards him for the rushing touchdown. We know how strong that tush push has been for this team. So if I was going to lock in anything in this one, it would be Jalen Hurts higher than a half a rushing touchdown in this game. But I want to talk a little bit of NBA, and we have a matchup tonight between the Lakers and the Nets. And looking at this one between the Lakers and the Nets, I'm expecting Austin Reeves to come out really strong in this game. Anthony Davis and LeBron James just not at 100% out there. And I'm just looking at his higher or lowers here for Austin Reeves. Let me just pull it up. We're getting a number of 2.5 for his 3-pointers, Tom. I'm looking for him to go higher than that. His ability to hit these threes is so strong. And with AD and LeBron not 100%, for the Lakers to be able to come out strong enough in this game to get to where the books expect, Reeves is going to have to be able to sink those threes from deep. And we know he's been able to do this versus the Nets in his career. He's had 4 games versus the first game versus the Nets. He wasn't able to get higher than the 2.5, only hitting 2. But in the other 3 games, he was able to do so, hitting 4 in 2 occasions and 6 in the other. And I do think in this game here, he could easily hit 3, 4. I even see him hitting 5, Tom.
Yeah, against this Nets defense, a lot of that is possible. They, I know they won the other night against the Trailblazers, but still giving up a ton of points, and they got absolutely torched against the Clippers. They were held to 67 points on offense. They're giving up 120 plus, whatever it might be. So going up against the defense for the Nets, any player has the ability to knock down 3-4 threes. So we got a little bit more to get to in terms of the rest of the weekend slate. We have some more info on Sports Millions coming up, Joe.
Check out Sports Millions Social Casino featuring classic slots and brand new game concepts. The Social Casino features the opportunity to win large sweepstake coins, and the games are always free to enter. Go play now at sportsmillions.com/social-casino. That's sportsmillions.com/social-casino. Okay, Tom, we're going to be coming up against a little bit of a break here. But before we do, Sebastian Aho, it seems easy to go higher than the 2.5 shots on goal. I know you were liking him earlier. That's coming, the higher for the Canes?
Yep,
Would you go
absolutely.
there? Okay, guys, we'll be back after the break. Mark Zino will be joining us here on the grid.
It's going to be copy-paste. Books are not good. Win total's a tick too low. Knock it right over. Make playoff price tick too juicy. Bang it out. Postseason comes around on a tee. Knock their heads off.
I don't think the Steelers organization just makes a move to make a move. They have to have, it's like being in the book. You have to know what you're going to move the line to.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Talk about it failing and always putting the square peg into the round hole. We're going to run it. We're going to try and play these lower scoring games. They didn't score over 17 points in the 5 straight losses.
There's a chance for the Ravens to exercise every single demon on their way to a Super Bowl. But it also means the path is very difficult and things are only getting started.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Happy Friday, everyone. It's Game Time Decisions over here on the grid. Joe Madden here, joined by Tom Vecchio, as we welcome in our friend Mark Zino. Mark, we've got a loaded day out there on the hardwood, and let's jump straight into it. I know you're looking at the matchup between OKC and the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks, the dog at home, 7.5-point dog, total of 225.5. Firstly, how you're doing, and secondly, what are you liking in this matchup?
Well, thanks for having me, guys. As always, I appreciate it. I mean, look, this is pure situational here, right? Oklahoma City coming off that huge win last night at home against Cleveland. They dumped 134 on them. It's got to be a little bit of a letdown spot coming off that win last night. They're still going to be without Isaiah Hartenstein in this game. No Chet Holmgren, no AJ Mitchell. I mean, look, they've had a bunch of guys who are not healthy. And you look at Dallas. I know they're without Luka, so they're going to be shorthanded. And Kyrie is a question mark at this point in time. We'll find out within the next hour if he's going to play. Look, obviously, if he's not in, I would probably walk away from this. But, again, this is a Dallas team that eliminated them last year in the postseason. And this is the first game of these two teams in Dallas this year. The first two games were played in Oklahoma City. They split them both. I just think, there's got to be a little bit of a letdown here for Oklahoma City playing back-to-back nights. Dallas obviously didn't play last night. And so they've had an extra night of rest. And I think situationally here, Dallas will be able to keep this thing tight. I don't know if they can win this game, but 7.5 felt a little bit too thick for me to lay with Oklahoma City on the night, second night of a back-to-back.
Yeah, I'm on the under on this game, and it's for a lot of the same reasons. We also have seen Dallas's offensive efficiency drop, and like you said, this is a bit of a letdown spot after a huge win for them last night. So I'm on the under, and I could definitely see Dallas either keeping it close or coming away with the win. Let's turn to football. What's your favorite game of the weekend? Because I'm feeling some unders this weekend, as we saw all of last weekend, but I think the unders will come into play, especially the weather between Baltimore and Buffalo. 51.5 just seems way too high for me.
Yeah, again, I mean, look, I like the first half under 24.5 in that Buffalo and Baltimore game. I mean, look, it takes a little while for these guys to get adjusted to that kind of weather. And I would tend to think both of these teams are going to be running the football early, given the fact that the weather is going to be a little bit of an issue. Maybe snowing, they're getting about 18-mile-an-hour winds in this thing. I mean, it could get a little bit nasty. We won't really know until closer to kickoff how this goes. But, I hold to a pretty stiff maxim of if it ain't going over early, it probably ain't going over late. I'd be more inclined to think that this thing would pick up the pace in the second half after they got their legs underneath them. But, you would expect that the first quarter would be a little bit slow and it just wouldn't be enough possessions. Remember, Buffalo only had 3 possessions against Denver in the entire first half. And again, Denver scored quick on their first drive. In 2.5 minutes, they scored a touchdown, and Buffalo only touched the ball 3 times in that entire rest of that first half. So I think that pace will be similar here. It's just going to be really hard for these guys to get adjusted here. 51.5 is a huge total. I like the game, but I'm going to play the under 24.5 in the first half, as you need that extra score to get over 24. We get home at 14-10, 17-7, all that stuff gets us under 24.5 here, and I think we're in a good shape as far as the under for the game is concerned.
I definitely love you looking at that under for the first half, especially if you take into the equation in that second half, we could see this game pushing to overtime, which could push us over that total. Now, when we look at the side, this is the tightest spread of all of the matchups this weekend, Mark. Are you leaning one way or another? To me, it comes down to which quarterback you can really trust more, Lamar or Josh Allen. If you're getting both of these quarterbacks with that ball in the last minute, who do you trust to get that ball down the field? And does that come into factor when you're looking at this matchup?
Well, my heart is with Josh Allen in Buffalo, so I hope the Bills win the game. That said, there's a couple of interesting notes here. Lamar Jackson has opened as an underdog and then closed as a favorite 6 times in his career. All 6 of those games, he's 6-0 straight up and against the number, and he's covered those games by an average of 9 points per game. So that favors the Ravens. There's another way to cut this game in half when we talk about it, that the Bills and Josh Allen have covered the second half spread in 11 straight games that he's played this year, not including Week 18 when he didn't play in the second half. Allen's 15-2 in the second half against the number this year, the best mark of any quarterback in the NFL. None of the Bills, under Allen, the Bills are 63% rather in the second half. So since 2005, he's been the most profitable quarterback in the second half. You may want to look at this game and go Ravens first half money line and then play the Bills in the second half.
Okay, so what are your other thoughts for, especially Commanders and the Lions, like 55.5? Now, are we looking at the Dome and saying this game's going to have a ton of points? Because I have an issue getting to some of the Commanders' props this weekend, the way I'm looking at it, because especially if Montgomery's back for the Lions, I see them breaking off 8, 9, 10, 11 play drives, and they're going to bleed the clock, and the Commanders just won't have the opportunities to get back in that game. So as we shift to another one, what are your thoughts on that one?
I mean, I'm laying it with the Lions here. Every time that Washington has had to step up in class this year, they've come up short. They played 4 playoff teams during the regular season. They lost all 4 of those games. 4 of their 5 losses this year have been on the road. But when you get them to step up to an elite level team in class like Baltimore and Philadelphia like they did this year, they lost both those games by at least a touchdown. So this is a Lions team, one, that their coach never takes their foot off the gas. So even if they're up late, you're not going to see them trying to run the clock out. They're going to continue to push and continue to try to put points up on the board. And this is a Washington secondary that can be had. I mean, that's really what it boils down to here. I mean, as much as Marshawn Lattimore has come back and been okay, I suppose, you got way too many receivers. Not only that, a tight end and a running back out of the backfield and Jahmyr Gibbs who can catch the ball. I mean, there's just enough weapons here. Too many weapons, I think, for Washington to be able to keep up with. And push comes to shove, guys. As good as Jaden Daniels is, if you're asking him to continually have to throw to put this team, get this team back in the game, if their defense can't keep this thing within a 1-score game for the first half, I don't like the game script of Jaden Daniels having to continually throw his way for 2+ quarters to try to keep up with this Lions team. It's a bad recipe, especially for a banged-up defense. I know the secondary for the Lions has had challenges, but if you're going to get this defensive front to be able to pin their ears back and go nonstop, either Jaden Daniels is going to have to run this entire game and continue to move the ball for Washington, or if he has to throw it down the field, he's probably going to end up in a couple of interception spots, and the Lions going to run away with this thing.
Yeah, it might be a nice spot, Mark, to look at that defensive touchdown here for the Detroit Lions, as Jaden Daniels really has been put in those situations over the last 5 games, winning those games on that last possession with a minute left out there on the field. So he's been in a hard place, but a team that should be in a hard place is the Houston Texans versus the Kansas City Chiefs. We know the Chiefs are coming in nice and rested into this matchup, and I'm actually shocked the Houston Texans, even though their defense looked great versus the Chargers, aren't a bigger dog in this matchup. They're an 8.5-point dog. We know this storyline on Patrick Mahomes. Do you think he breaks that storyline where he comes out and dominates, wins this by double digits, or are you on the Houston Texans?
Well, the Kansas City Chiefs this year have been favored by at least a touchdown 7 times. They're 0-7 against the spread. They can't cover big numbers because their offense can't put points up on the board. In the matchup when these two teams played back on December 21st, the Chiefs won by 8 points. They also were gifted 10 points in the first half off of 2 Houston turnovers. And including the first drive of the game for Houston, they threw an interception that led to a Chiefs touchdown. Then they got another turnover in the first half that led to a field goal. They don't get those 10 free points from Houston, they don't win the game. And I just don't trust Kansas City to cover big numbers here. So I'm on the Texans in this spot. And don't be surprised, guys, if the Texans are in a position to win this game. The hardest part about beating the Chiefs is your coach can't have that pucker factor and tense up at the end. If they have a lead, they've got to learn how to keep their foot on the throat of the Chiefs and go all out and be willing to lose the game as opposed to, just playing not to lose it as opposed to playing to win it. I think there's a real script here for Houston to be able to stay tight in this game, keep it close. But this is not a Chiefs offense that anybody fears at this point in time. And we've seen that time in and time out again this season.
When this line opened, I said the exact same thing. Is like the Chiefs will win this game, but they're not going to cover that point. And betting them in game, if you can get them at -2 or -3, they may cover that, but they're not covering 8.5 or 8 points, whatever it's going to end up at.
I teased the Chiefs and the Eagles, right? Take the Eagles that pick and tease the Chiefs under a field goal, and you have 2 low totals, so it works out well.
Mark, we got about 20 seconds. Yeah, Mark, we got about 20 seconds. Any thoughts on the Rams and the Eagles?
I can't figure out the Rams. I don't think the Eagles are losing the game, but I'll take the points.
Okay, Mark, we really appreciate you being here, joining us for a couple of minutes, taking your time on a Friday. You guys will be back in the next couple of minutes here on Game Time Decisions.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented 3rd straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Talk about it failing and always putting the square peg into the round hole. We're going to run it. We're going to try and play these lower scoring games. They didn't score over 17 points in the 5 straight losses.
There's a chance for the Ravens to exercise every single demon on their way to a Super Bowl. But it also means the path is very difficult and things are only getting started.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Okay, you guys, it's game time decisions over here on the grid. I'm Joe Madden, joined by Tom Vecchio. We just had Mark Zinno on for a hot minute there in the last segment, talking some divisional matchups. So thank you to him for coming on. But Tom, it sounds like we've got some news out there in the baseball world.
We do. Breaking news that the prize Japanese pitcher Sasaki, shockingly enough, is signing with the Dodgers. Maybe wasn't expected by some. It was largely expected by others that he would be joining Ohtani and Yamamoto. Ohtani, one of his former teammates. They are now putting together quite a pitching staff over there, obviously, with getting Blake Snell. They'll have Tyler Glasnow back. It's going to be all Dodgers every single day throughout the baseball season. The future's on them. Whatever it might be, Dodgers, not only this year, but for many years to come. So Sasaki officially signing with the Dodgers as he announced on Instagram.
Tom, should we just go to the book right now and bet the Dodgers to take the World Series? Because it's just feeling that way, right?
It certainly does. Obviously, a lot of people have been betting on the Mets as the questions can be, if you're not betting on the Dodgers, who's going to be the team that gets past them? It's probably going to be the Mets, just with the talent that they have and the moves that they will continue to make. But man, it is looking like just a two-team race in the ML, or at least in the NL for baseball this year, which is not necessarily what we want to see as fans. And what I said at the beginning of last season, I think there's going to be value in betting against the Dodgers every single day. Because we're going to see lines when they're at home. They're going to be minus 300, minus 400, as we saw last year on the money line at home. And they're going to lose games. They will lose games at home as they did last year to the Rockies when they're minus 300 because it's baseball and weird stuff happens. The Dodgers aren't going to go 162-0. They may win 100 games or 105 games, but they're still going to lose. And all the games that they lose are so incredibly valuable.
You're so right out there. The overreaction, though, of the books when the other team does go up is definitely where you want to jump in on the Dodgers to get them just a straight up win as that line moves. And now, Tom, you've got me all excited. I can't wait to bet those Yerfies because we know the Dodgers were so strong. The Yankees so strong at getting those Yerfies last season. So we're on the countdown to baseball, but there's some great college basketball action happening today. There's one game that's already kicked off. So we're coming close to the end of the first half here between Ohio and Akron. I did roll with Akron's team total. They currently are leading this game 39-22. If you want to jump in on Akron, you got to lay 14.5 at the moment. I don't love that live look because coming into this, they were only right around a 2.5, 3.5 point favorite. So I wouldn't lay the 14.5, but if you can jump in on a team total, the original team total was 82.5. I still like 90.5 to the over if you can get that number. So looking at Akron to come out nice and strong. Lack of defense between these two teams, that totals 157.5. That has actually dropped a little bit because Ohio hasn't been putting up those points. So I would still look at that one to go over. We then have a matchup here between Providence and Villanova. Now, Villanova is an 8.5 point favorite in this one. Laying 8.5 is minus 118. I'm going to lay it with Villanova. I don't trust Providence as much defensively to slow down Villanova in this matchup. The total's 139.5, and I do think Villanova will do their share of slowing down Providence and be able to break away in this game. Their ability to hit those free throws is outstanding. They're hitting those free throws 79.5% of the time, and that's one thing that just drives me crazy when I'm watching basketball and you're betting on a team for them not to be able to hit those. So their ability to hit those is strong. And then Eric Dixon coming out here, one of their best players on the court. I think he can get to his 25 plus points tonight. That's coming in at plus 108. So I will be doing that biggie showdown between these two teams. Home court for Villanova. I'm all over it. I also want to look at the matchup between Indiana and Ohio State. So there's a bunch of other games that I'm just staying off, Tom. VCU, St. Joseph home dog, 3.5 point dog. I don't want anything to do with that game. I think it's a tight one. St. Joseph, I lean towards them getting the win, but I just can't get my money there. Robert Morris versus Green Bay. Again, another home dog in Green Bay. I can't trust them, but can I trust Robert Morris to lay 6.5? I just can't. The total 144.5, though, is interesting to that over. But when we look at Indiana versus Ohio State, this one kicking off at 8 o'clock, We have a spread of 7.5 in this one, total of 150. And I just think this total's too high. I'm looking at this Indiana team. They've lost their last couple here. Battle of the Big Ten, and Ohio State's so strong defensively. I'm expecting them to really lock down in this one. Strong defensive battle between these two. So I will take the under 150.5. Youngstown versus Milwaukee. That one has a total of 146.5. Gonna stay off that as well. I'm just not in love with it. And then Iowa versus UCLA. I think this one is a nice one to look at the road dog in this one. Iowa is coming in as a 5.5 point dog on the road. Now this is moved. They were up to a 7-point dog when this line first opened. We got a total of 150.5. I'm thinking they can keep it tight. You look at UCLA, they just haven't been covering these big spreads. They haven't covered a spread this month, the month of January. So I'm not going to lay the points with them here. Again, that line has dropped down to a 5.5. So that's basically what I'm liking other than DePaul. I think DePaul's another team to look at here on the road versus Georgetown. Their defense has struggled to defend against those threes, so they're going to have to really step up here versus Georgetown. But I think when we look at Georgetown, this isn't a team that takes or makes a ton of threes out there on the court. So I think with that factor in play, that DePaul should be able to roll strong. Now, DePaul is coming in as an 8.5 point dog on the road. That has seen line movement as well. They were a 9.5 point dog earlier, but I also like the under 139.5, Tom. So that's what I'm liking for college basketball. I'm not sure if you had anything that you had circled on the college basketball slate. It's not the best of slates today. Let's just say that.
Yeah, certainly a smaller slate of action gets started early tomorrow between Alabama and Kentucky. Nice 12 p.m. start before we get some football underway. 178.5 is the total for that game. Certainly leaning on the under on that one. Big SEC matchup. We're kind of getting to that important point of the season for so many of these teams. So under on that one to start the day may not be the most exciting, but under 178.5 is where I'll look.
Yeah, unders are never exciting and fun to bet, but when these teams are missing those free throws, Tom, it's a good thing to be on some of those unders, that's for sure. You guys will be back in the next couple of minutes, just coming up against the break here on Game Time Decisions.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Talk about it failing and always putting the square peg into the round hole. We're going to run it. We're going to try and play these lower scoring games. They didn't score over 17 points in the 5 straight losses.
There's a chance for the Ravens to exercise every single demon on their way to a Super Bowl. But it also means the path is very difficult and things are only getting started.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome back to Game Time Decisions over here on SportsGrid. I'm Joe Madden. I'm joined by Tom Vecchio. Tom, we jumped into the NBA slate already, but there's a couple games that we haven't gone over. I want to start looking at this matchup here between the Charlotte Hornets and the Chicago Bulls. Now, the Bulls at home in this one, they're laying 4 points. This total's actually dropped a little bit down. It was 236 when we kicked off the show. It's dropped to 235, and I still don't think this is low enough. I'm just questioning how they're going to get to all of these points. Everything has to go perfect out there, in my opinion, for them to hit 235. What are your thoughts on this one?
My thoughts on this one is that we're not going to see a ton of points. We're getting news that, Zach LaVine is now questionable about 20 minutes ago or so. Based on what we see from these teams, I think Mark Williams can have some points tonight, but I'm not necessarily loving the rebounds. So I'm on Williams under 11.5 rebounds. I just don't love the matchup for him going up against Vooch. And, it's got a little bit of juice. It is sitting at minus 136. So, of course, shop for the best lines available. That's always important if you can find it somewhere better. But when it comes to, team rebounds per game or total rebounds per game, I like what we're seeing from Chicago as we have seen, not just for them this season, but or Vooch this season. But, Mark Williams, and you're going to look back and say, oh, he had 12 rebounds when they played Chicago, a couple of weeks ago. I just can't see myself getting to that many rebounds, especially if I'm leaning on the under. Like, I just don't know how many possessions we're going to be seeing back and forth. So Williams under, the game under. If you're looking at player props and points, you have to wait on maybe some of that LaVine news, but probably it's got a close spread, which is not what we have for some of these games. Tonight's slate, we're only going to have 14.5 with the Celtics or 11.5 points here or there. It actually is a closer spread game, but I just don't know if we're going to see a ton of points in it.
Yeah, Charlotte is only averaging 106.5 points per game, Tom. And then we look at the Chicago Bulls and we look at what they did on Wednesday versus Atlanta. They only put up 94 points in that matchup. I just don't see it hitting that high of a game. So yes, the Bulls can push the pace, but they're just not getting the ball in the net. So I can't go there. We do have a matchup between the Memphis Grizzlies and the San Antonio Spurs as well. This one, the Spurs, another home dog. I love these home dogs. They're +2 right now on that spread, +110 on the money line, total of 239 in this one. Now, we saw Memphis get the double-digit win on Wednesday. Can they do it again? Can they come out strong again versus the Spurs and cover the spread and get us the win? That's where I'm questioning. I think Jackson will come out nice and strong, be able to get those threes on the board. Victor Wembanyama, how much resistance is he going to provide in this one? So many questions around this game for me, Tom.
Yeah, and Grizzlies are the better team overall. I think they come away with the win ultimately. 239 is certainly a high line. The lack of defense from the Spurs can certainly get us there. One quick note I want to make is that Kyrie Irving is officially available to play. We were talking about this when Mark was here between the Thunder and the Mavericks. That line is 6.5 in favor of the Thunder. And there's a note from Jason Kidd, the Mavericks head coach, that Kyrie is expected to play around 33 minutes. So that's important depending on what props you may be on. Obviously, it impacts the game overall. But I'm still on the under on this game. And again, I kind of lean with the Mavericks, as Mark said, good, I don't want to say bounce back game for them, but just like a motivational game for them after, like you said, getting knocked out in the playoffs, but a letdown spot for the Thunder after a massive win last night. So, coming up against 7 o'clock as we are about to hit a break, important time in NBA news right now as we are about to hit tip-off. And it should be noted that Jokic for the Nuggets is still listed as a game-time decision with his elbow issue he's got going on.
Yeah, well, hopefully he gets into that game for sure. That late game, the 10:40 window, is the LA Lakers taking on the Brooklyn Nets. We touched on this. Austin Reeves, I'm heavy on. I like laying the points with the Lakers here, but that has burnt me. In the past, it's burnt me majorly last season laying those points with the Lakers. But do you think this is one where the Lakers can at home cover those 11 points versus the Brooklyn Nets?
You would like to think so, right? After especially this road trip that the Nets have been on, a couple games. Again, like they beat Portland, what does that show us? And then you get blown out by the Clippers by 50 some odd points. Like, this is a game the Lakers need to take care of, and just as straightforward as possible. They should be able to cover this game. That's really what it comes down to.
I love that word should. That's exactly how I'm feeling about the Lakers in this matchup. They should be able to get it done. Just will they show up? Will LeBron James, will AD show up in this matchup? I'm really thinking that they will. We know those guys aren't at 100%, but they need to step up. Look for Austin Reeves to be able to come out, get those threes on the board. But you guys, we are coming up against a break here. After the break, don't go anywhere because we got Brady Cannon coming in. He's going to update us on the American Express, and then we're going to look at the divisional matchups this weekend and what he's liking. We'll be back in the next couple minutes here on Game Time Decisions.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets and when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Talk about it failing and always putting the square peg into the round hole. We're going to run it. We're going to try and play these lower scoring games. They didn't score over 17 points in the 5 straight losses.
There's a chance for the Ravens to exercise every single demon on their way to a Super Bowl. But it also means the path is very difficult and things are only getting started.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome back to Game Time Decisions over here on SportsGrid. I'm Joe Madden, joined by Tom Vecchio, as we welcome in Brady Cannon. Brady, I know we're going to talk some American Express, but first, let's jump into this weekend. We've got great divisional matchups. What are you thinking so far going into this? Are you having any strong leans out there?
Yeah, I was actually surprised to see. I got some information early in the week from BetMGM that the majority of the folks were betting the Kansas City Chiefs, and that was no surprise at all. Then I got another update later today, and I saw that the majority of the tickets are on the Houston Texans. So I'm a little surprised by that the majority, the recreational bettors, in large part that make up that MGM crowd, are on the underdog here. I like the underdog. I think it's too many points. We saw this matchup not too long ago, and the Chiefs were favored by 3.5. Now they covered that game pretty handily, so I understand an adjustment there. I understand an adjustment for the team getting healthier, for Andy Reid off of a bye, and this team being well rested and all that good stuff. But don't we upgrade the Texans as well off of that performance against the Los Angeles Chargers last week? I think that's probably the best game I've seen them play all season long, certainly defensively. And, I know the books never have to beg for Chiefs money. It's typically a very public team. And so it just feels to me like this number was adjusted a little bit and maybe intentionally a little bit too much. I think the number ought to be closer to 6. We're already to 8 or 8.5. And I wouldn't be surprised, guys, if we got to 9 or 9.5. There's not a huge difference between 8.5 and 9, and certainly not 9 or 9.5. But I think, and I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas City won. I wouldn't be surprised if Houston won either. I think this is a tighter game. That was certainly one of my reactions to the Saturday slate. And then secondly, I feel it's very similar with the Detroit Lions, that this line is a little bit inflated because they too have become a very public team. And they are, I believe, at BetMGM, the number 1 team in ticket count this week. Not surprising. America's fallen in love with this team. And me too. I love Dan Campbell. And I mean, this team's extremely exciting to watch. I hope they go a long ways, but I still think it's too many points. I think this number also should be closer to 6, 6.5, maybe 7. And we understand there's probably some teaser protection there with it being all the way up to 9 or 9.5. But this is probably a game, not so much with the Houston and Chiefs game, where I think Houston has a pretty good chance to win. I don't know if the Commanders can win this one. I think Detroit gets the W and advances. But I would be betting on the Commanders to cover this number.
When you're looking at the totals this week, what are your thoughts? Because I can reason myself to the unders in all of the games except the Chiefs game. 41.5, that has me a little bit worried, but I can, I'm on the unders for the other 3 games, but 41.5, depending on where you got it, I'm feeling a game that ends at like 24-17 in favor of the Chiefs. And, they don't cover the number, they win, but we're going to be right at that total. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a pretty good assessment, Tom. 24-17 sounds about right. Maybe 24-20, something like that. That obviously would take it over. But I think there's a good chance that these offenses stall a little bit in the early going, especially Kansas City, who's been off for a couple of weeks. And the starters, Travis Kelce, Pacheco, Mahomes, all the big, skill position players have been off for over 3 weeks. So I would expect a little bit of rust there out of the gate, maybe a first half under is really the way to go. And I wouldn't be surprised if that held true throughout. It's so many points with Washington and Detroit. I just have to play that under. I think, again, we're talking about the point spread being inflated and Detroit being a public team. I think that plays into the total here as well. I mean, people see Jaden Daniels and, if you look at the Commanders games as of late, they haven't been, the high-flying electric offensive games that we started out the season with. People have caught on to the offensive scheme a little bit. I also believe that Daniels was, being protected a little bit more, not necessarily running as much. He had those ribs that were a little banged up. Now that we're in the playoffs, you might see him run more. So that's hard to gauge there. They're going to go for it on 4th down more, might utilize him more because there's no tomorrow, right, if you lose. So they're probably going to take some more risks with Daniels, but still, even that being the case, if he's going to push, with the plays that they're giving him, even if that pushes towards more scoring, not being conservative with their star quarterback, it's still a ton of points. And I don't know if I could go over on that one either. I think maybe so with the Eagles, Tom. I think they're going to score more points than maybe a lot of people think. I think this is a tough situation for the Los Angeles Rams, and I think I have to probably go over with the Baltimore Ravens and Buffalo Bills. Is either team going to be able to stop one another in that one?
I think it's the weather that's an issue.
Yeah,
freezing temperatures, some snow, and again, especially the Ravens, a team that loves to run the ball. Combined with the weather, I think we're going to see that clock bleed off a little bit. And, when I'm looking at that game, I think the Ravens have to learn the lesson of what they failed to do last year in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. And it's like, they just got to stick to their plan. And that's Derrick Henry seeing the ball 22, 24 times. It's not him seeing it 12 times.
Very good point. Yeah. And I forgot. I always forget about the weather. You're right. And there's weather in Philadelphia too, but I still feel like I'd rather play that one over. because the Rams secondary has been the weak spot of that team. Now, the defense has been much improved as of late, but again, I think this situation is very difficult for the Rams, and it's kind of a break for Jalen Hurts to be able to go up against a weaker secondary. So I think they could have a field day through the air and on the ground, and I think win this one by double digits. You know, we know what the Rams had to deal with last week, the fires in Los Angeles, being moved out to Arizona, the emotion, the distraction, you know, everything that took from this team emotionally and physically. And now to be able to get up and do it on the road again in another road situation, this time playing an even better opponent in the Philadelphia Eagles, maybe some people think the very best team in the NFL. If you look at the Rams, you guys remember way back to the beginning of the season, that game against the Detroit Lions, Matthew Stafford went back home and they left everything on the mat. They let it all out and they came up short, and then they got crushed the very next week. And then they bounced back the next week. They came back late in the fourth quarter to beat the 49ers, and then they got crushed the next week. They went back and forth with these, you know, big emotional, you know, a lot of energy spent games victorious, and then they'd come back the next week and get flattened. And it kind of feels like that history may be repeating itself here in round 2 for the Rams.
Yeah, it definitely could be repeating itself. But what are your thoughts on some of these first halves, Brady? Because when we look at the Rams and the Eagles, when they did play each other earlier this season, we saw the Rams come out strong in that first half, but the Eagles, with a couple minutes left in the first half, start to pull away and then pulled away for the full game. So do you think any of these underdogs could keep it tight with a strong game strip coming out to start?
I think the Texans in the first half could be a good play. Chiefs could be a little rusty to begin that game. I think the Lions will be okay. I think that will probably be a pretty tightly contested game in the first half. The Rams, if you're going to bet the Rams in any way, form, or fashion, it has to be the first half, because maybe they're still running on adrenaline a little bit. But I think eventually Philadelphia pulls away in that game and wins by double digits.
Okay, well, we're going to come back. We're coming up against a quick break here, Brady, but when we get back, we want to hear your best bets this weekend as well. Get an update from the American Express. So don't go anywhere, you guys. We'll be back in the next couple minutes here on The Grid.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think GameTime Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to GameTime Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than GameTime Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into GameTime Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Game Time Decisions over here on SportsGrid. I'm Joe Madden. I'm joined by Tom Vecchio, and Brady Cannon's being kind enough to stick around for another segment here with us. And Brady, we got to jump into what your best bets are this weekend in these divisional matchups. So let's kick it off with the Houston Texans taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. What are you going for your best bets in this one?
I think you're okay taking the 8.5, but if you play a 6-point teaser, depending on what your number is, you want to get it to the other side of 14. That makes me feel very comfortable if I've got 14.5. So it may be a 6.5-point teaser, 6-point teaser, what have you. But I really like taking the Texans to 14.5. And if you have to find a dance partner there, you're not necessarily going through a bunch of key numbers. You're going through a 10 and a 14, but that would equate to taking the Commanders to a 15, 15.5, maybe even 16 if you have the 6.5-point teaser. It also works for the Sunday games for me with the Eagles, taking them down to either a pick 'em or catching a half point. The half point is nice because, obviously you're not going to have a tie in the playoffs. They'll play until it's decided, but I don't mind having that half point on the other side. And then the key here is the Buffalo Bills. And I don't necessarily recommend a 4-team teaser. I'd probably do 3 teams at the most, ideally 2 teams. And you got to, see what kind of prices you can get. Ideally, you want to lay minus 120 with a 6-point teaser, minus 130, 10 cents for every half point is the ideal price. But the key here for the 6 or 6.5-point teaser is the Bills. And really, guys, whichever team ends up being a 1-point dog in this game, you want to tease them to plus 7.5. On the other side of the 7, that's the key. Getting the Bills to 7.5 would equate, the way it stands right now, in a 6.5-point teaser. If we end up getting some Bills money before Sunday and the Ravens become an underdog, either one of those sides to plus 7.5. So it's a 6 or 6.5-point teaser for me across the board. 3 of the dogs and then the lone favorite on the Philadelphia Eagles, Joe.
Now, would you say, which of those games would you say would be the weak link? Because, Ravens-Bills is obviously a toss-up. If either team won by 10, would you be shocked? Like if that was the game to lead it off?
I think I would. That game kind of, and you made a great point about the weather and the Derrick Henry factor, and we know the Bills' defense has been shaky at times. It just feels to me like whichever team has the ball last is going to win that game. I think it's a 1-score game, Tom. So I think the odds are in your favor. I think it's a positive EV risk here with plus 7.5. I think the odds are in your favor if you're getting 7.5 points. The fact, the odds of it or the chance of it going to double digits one way or another, I believe is in the minority.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it is as well. Sorry, Tom.
So I was going to say, do you have a favorite player prop, or are you not involved in that market?
You know what? I haven't looked at those. I'm doing a show with Adam tomorrow afternoon, and I'll have to dive in heavy to those. Gosh, off the top of my head, what would be one? David Montgomery coming back for Detroit. There's probably going to be a lot of focus on him. And that would have me probably leaning the other way. Tom, you're great at props. And my approach to props is typically betting against human achievement and also trying to find guys that are off the marquee, not the main billing athlete. I don't want to bet props on LeBron James and Patrick Mahomes and stuff like that. I did mention earlier, that they're going to not be conservative with Jaden Daniels and running the football and risking injury and stuff like that, right? I think it's a good week to bet these quarterbacks, especially the mobile ones, Mahomes, Daniels, Hurts, Josh Allen. I think it's a good play to bet those guys over their rushing totals or over their rushing attempts because they're going to take more risks, again, with no tomorrow.
Yeah,
With those quarterbacks taking...
Go ahead this time.
With those quarterbacks taking more risk, Brady, do you think any of them can get in the end zone? I know you haven't started looking at that market, but we do have Jalen Hurts out there. We know how strong that tush-push is for the Eagles. We know Mahomes, while he hasn't got a ton of rushing touchdowns. He has the ability. Same with Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, like you talked about. The only one I wouldn't look at is Matt Stafford. Is there any that you really have circled?
Well, that'd be a fun one to play, right? Matthew Stafford, anytime touchdown. What's that, 25-1 or something? Maybe that's worth a shot. But I'd have to go with Josh Allen. You got to figure he's going to get in the end zone. And all the other guys make sense too, probably especially Jalen Hurts. But Josh Allen feels like the highest probability. And I know you're going to have to pay a price. I mean, what is it, minus 150, minus 200 even maybe? But I'd be okay with that because I think he's going to get in there.
So the player prop that I like probably most this weekend would probably be Lamar under 28.5 passing attempts. Again, the running game, the running script for the Ravens will come into play combined with the weather. As you said, you don't like finding those marquee players. As I've said for literally years at this point, coming on SportsGrid, whether it's the early line, game time decisions, in-game live, I love finding those secondary and tertiary players because those lines are not as refined as a Puka Nacua, as a Cooper Kupp in the heyday, or Derrick Henry. Like, those numbers are so refined and they're so heavily bet that you don't want to be going there because if you don't get in early, you've missed the movement by that point by game time. So I'm looking at some secondary options. I do like DeAndre Hopkins over 29.5 receiving yards, though, for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think that one makes sense. Absolutely. As far as like the Detroit Lions, they have so many options. It's hard to really, focus on one guy. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, the under the radar guy, like you say, the anti-marquee player I might be looking at in Detroit is something like a Sam Laporta.
Brady, we're coming up
always the spot to go.
We're coming up against a break. We got 1 minute left. I just wanted to hear if you could give us an update quickly here on the American Express.
Yeah, unfortunately, the guys that I bet pre-tournament, none of them are faring too well. This is a real crapshoot of a tournament. It's extremely difficult to predict. One of the more unpredictable tournaments on the PGA Tour calendar. But I did add a couple of outrights after round one, and they're both doing very well. Justin Lower and Mark Hubbard. They are currently in second place, just one shot off of the lead. I still like adding those guys if you want to at this point, Justin Lower and Mark Hubbard, and then a couple of other guys, Rico Hoey and JJ Spawn. Those would be four guys I would look at the halfway point here if you want to get involved in a finish position or an outright win, Mark.
Okay, you guys, we're coming up against the break. Brady, thank you so much for your time here today on Game Time Decisions.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Talk about it failing and always putting the square peg into the round hole. We're going to run it. We're going to try and play these lower scoring games. They didn't score over 17 points in the 5 straight losses.
There's a chance for the Ravens to exercise every single demon on their way to a Super Bowl. But it also means the path is very difficult and things are only getting started.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Game Time Decisions over here on the grid. I'm Joe Madden, joined by Tom Vecchio. Now, things have kicked off already on the hardwood. Quickly want to update you on the college basketball scores, and we'll jump into some NBA and players that you got to watch that will not be taking the court. Akron is currently leading Ohio 52-38 on the college basketball slate. They're now laying 11.5 in that matchup. We have St. Joseph losing to VCU 16-12. Providence and Villanova up 20-14, and then Green Bay up 27-13 over Robert Morris. Now, Tom, I know we're going to talk some NBA, some players that are out. The one game that has kicked off is the Orlando Magic. I know you grabbed the points there with the Magic. They're keeping it tight with the Boston Celtics right now, 17-13. But what are you hearing for some of these players not making the court tonight?
Yeah, the Knicks are tipping off in about 15 minutes or so. They're taking on the Timberwolves. That line has moved to 2.5. I believe it was 4.5 earlier. That is because Karl Anthony Towns has been ruled out for the Knicks. They will be seeing Jericho Sims start in his place. Also for the Thunder, SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is now listed as questionable. We spoke about this game a number of times when Mark was here. We were interested in the Mavericks as he was. I was talking about the under in this game, which all points to that. And then for the Nuggets, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are both officially listed as available. That line has moved a little bit. It's now 3.5 in favor of the Nuggets. So as usual, this 6:30, 7:30 kind of window for the NBA, things are constantly changing, and that's where we stand now. So with Towns being out and Sims getting the start, we also could be seeing, just take a look at what rebound props we have for Josh Hart. His is sitting at 10.5 with -130 to the over. That is just a bit too much. If you could have gotten it at 9.5 earlier in the day, that would have been the spot, but constantly changing in the NBA landscape.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I'm disappointed to see Karl Anthony Towns out of this lineup because I was looking at him for his threes and for the Knicks to be able to cover that spread. Now, I still think they should be able to cover. I'm looking for Brunson to step up in his place. I'm going to grab a Brunson for his 3+ threes out there coming in at +105. Is there any other players that you would be looking at last minute here before the basketball drops? I want to say the puck drops, but there's no puck in basketball, Tom.
No. Let's see. Randall's still my favorite play in this game, over 19.5 points. Theoretically, down low should be a little bit easier for him with no Towns there and Jericho Sims in his starting in his spot. So I would look there. I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Josh Hart go over 10.5 rebounds. Like we have seen these games from him, not just this year, but dating back to last year with him piling up 14, 15, 16 rebounds. But 10.5 -130 is the issue that I have. I just don't want to go there. So that's probably it for me in this game. I don't mind the Knicks on taking the points or laying the points with the Knicks, and then Julius Randle scoring a lot of points against his former team.
Okay, now we talked about the Toronto Raptors, their struggles this season, taking on the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis will be out there on the court for the Bucks, but we talked about Pirtle and how strong he has been for the Raptors, getting those rebounds. I was just looking at his prop tonight. His number coming in at 10 plus rebounds at minus 125. I do think he can hit double digits. I just don't know if that's worth it. If you can think he can hit 12 plus, Tom, it's coming in at plus 200, but I don't know if I can take him that high. Could you?
No, like the number's fine. Like let's just be clear. Like he should be able to get there. The question becomes is, do we want to lay the juice? Right? I'm seeing 9.5 minus 128 on the over. So I think he can get there. I just don't want to lay minus 128. If you could get it at minus 110, that's a different story. Just with the size that the Bucks have out there between obviously Antetokounmpo and Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis, it isn't an easy matchup for Jakob Poeltl. So the 10 can come there just because if we see a ton of points, he can do his role. But I just don't want to lay minus 128. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to for me as well, expecting him to hit those double digits, but just not getting the value that I want. Things have started on the ice out there. The puck has dropped. The Vegas Golden Knights, Carolina Hurricanes, 8 minutes left in the first period. So if you're liking an under in this one, I tell you, Tom, a 0-0 score, not what I expected to start this game. That total's dropped to 4.5. High juice to the over at minus 178. The under 4.5, I can't get there. Plus 140. I still think this is a higher scoring one. And then the Pittsburgh Penguins taking on the Buffalo Sabres. 0-0 again. 8 minutes left. Also, I was not expecting this.
Yeah, the line is now under 5.5 at minus 182. Yeah. Not a whole lot of scoring in either of these games on the ice tonight.
You guys will be back in the next couple of minutes here on Game Time Decisions on the Grid.
The defense. Within Game Live Game Day, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Talk about it failing and always putting the square peg into the round hole. We're going to run it. We're going to try and play these lower scoring games. They didn't score over 17 points in the 5 straight losses.
There's a chance for the Ravens to exercise every single demon on their way to a Super Bowl. But it also means the path is very difficult and things are only getting started.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Game Time Decisions here on the Grid. I'm Joe Madden, joined by Tom Vecchio. We're with you till the top of the hour, and Dave Sharapan will be joining us here shortly. Just to update you on the NBA slate, we do have the Boston Celtics leading the Orlando Magic 25-20. That live spread is 16.5. Both Tom and I liking the Magic coming in, and they were grabbing 14.5 at that point. So if you want to live bet them, grabbing the 16.5, that's coming in at minus 130. Still scoreless out there on the ice as the Vegas Golden Knights and the Carolina Hurricanes and the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Buffalo Sabres, both with right around 5 minutes left. But Tom, we got to start looking at the NFL slate for this weekend. Divisional games, great matchups out there. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear where you're going. Let's look at the matchup first between the Houston Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm pretty sure I know where you're going with this one, but for everyone who doesn't, let's hear it.
Yeah, let's jump into this. When these lines came out last week after the divisional games, I did the recap show on Sunday night up until midnight. The first jump that I had was, and seeing these lines, was Joe Mixon under 62.5 rushing yards. I think the Chiefs will be out in front. Now, whether they cover is a different story, but this just does not set up well for a Joe Mixon game on the ground, at least. He's probably going to be involved in the air. He ends up with 40-some-odd yards on the ground. That line has already moved down to 57.5. So under 62 was the spot that I spoke about, live when it came out, and it's already at 57. And on the Chiefs side of things, it has to be DeAndre Hopkins. As I said to you earlier in this week, they brought him in for a reason. This is a mark that he has been over consistently since he joined the team, obviously not including the game on Christmas against the Steelers. He obviously sat out the last week versus the Broncos, but that line has already moved to 32.5. So, when we talk about these lines, and I'm doing shows throughout the week as we both are, early lines matter, and being in early. Now, this is not to say that, Joe Mixon's guaranteed to go under and Hopkins is guaranteed to go over, but it's like knowing that we have a good spot to start. So I like Hopkins over 29.5. Again, that line is up to 32.5. I still think he can get there. Again, veteran presence. They brought him in for a reason. Their wide receiver room was kind of in flux the entire year. Kelsey had his ups and downs this season. And while I think Xavier Worthy is a great option in the long run for the Chiefs, picking up first downs is what Hopkins has always been great at. So I absolutely love him this weekend.
Okay, I like where you're going there. And yeah, definitely looking at those early lines, so important when they come out to get the best of those numbers. Now, Tom, when you look at this matchup, I know you've been preaching that the Kansas City Chiefs probably don't cover this spread and that we're going to get a better line when this game is live. With us getting a better line there, do you think the Houston Texans can cover the spread of 3.5 in the first half? Because that's something I was interested at looking at in this matchup, because we look at Kansas City, they've had a couple weeks off. I know Andy Reid is so good at that game plan coming in, but the Houston Texans, with how that defense was playing, with how weak the offensive line has looked in some of these games for Patrick Mahomes, do you think Houston could, in this first half, at least keep it within that 3.5?
I do. And, it's a lot about what we've spoken about with Brady, with Mark, where, man, 8.5 is just a bit too much. It's just a bit too much. And Texans coming off a big win, like you said, Chiefs multiple weeks off at this point. Do they start out slow? And if we just fast forward to the end of this game, and this was the game script that I told you, well, the Texans had an early lead. The Chiefs come back and win. Yeah. Mahomes does Mahomes things, and the Chiefs end up winning, but they don't end up covering. Is anyone going to be shocked? So to see the Texans get out to a little bit of a lead, but then they kind of collapse because, as Mark said, you got to go for the throat when you have a chance to put the Chiefs away. And a lot of teams and coaches do not do that. So when it all is said and done, if that story plays out the exact way that we're talking about it, I don't think anyone would be shocked. So to see the Texans cover 3.5 in the first half and then quote unquote collapse in the second, and Mahomes does Mahomes magic, we know what's going to happen.
Well, we've seen it way too many times, Tom. You think about that Super Bowl with the 49ers and Jimmy G, when the 49ers were up so much going into that second half, and then the Kansas City Chiefs just found a way to come back. So they're always in that game, no matter how far they're down. It's not a team that you actually give up hope when they go down in these games. And I do think it happens. And I do think your look at that live bet when we get that number that you're looking for is definitely where I want to go. The Chiefs on the money line, if the Houston Texans go up 10-0, absolutely, that's where my money will be on the Chiefs on that money line. And hopefully the books give us good value because they know it's coming as well, and they'll want to hedge their risk out there. But the Washington Commanders and the Detroit Lions, this is such an interesting matchup. You talked about it, such a high total. I think everything has to go perfect in this game. Where do you think, other than looking at the under, there's value in it?
So when I'm looking at this game, immediately I look to Brian Robinson's rushing total, which was, I believe, was 38.5 when it opened. It's down to 36.5. He just has not been good on the ground for the Commanders as of late. This is also a difficult matchup going up against the Lions, especially their run defense. And listen, as 9.5 point underdogs, they're just not going to be in a spot to run the ball a ton. So it would lead me to Daniels' passing attempts. And this number has moved, or it is at different spots. But right now it's at 33.5 for his passing attempts, and it's minus 160 to the over. So that's obviously a little bit different compared to where it was at minus 125. There are some places where it's 34.5 and you get normal odds on that. I think the Commanders will have to pass the ball when it's all said and done. The issue I have with Daniels potentially getting to over 34.5, despite the fact that they will be trailing the whole time, is with Montgomery back. If they string together these 10, 11 play drives, they're just going to be eating up so much clock that Daniels just won't have enough plays. He literally won't have enough chances on the field to rack up 34.5 or 34 passing attempts, despite the fact that's what they need to do. So I like Daniels over 33.5, not at minus 160 though. Let's just be clear about that. I think he will get there, but not at those odds.
Yeah, you definitely got to look for that value out there in your bets. Okay, so one thing I'm looking at with this one, and it's not to go against your under, but I am looking at the Lions team total over. That number is high, though, at 33.5, but that's the team I can trust to get the points on the board. You look at Jared Goff, and I still think this one can go under and they can go over their individual team total because Jared Goff has been so strong at home in the Dome. So I know Dave Sharapan is joining us right away. We're going to get his thoughts as well. So let's welcome in Dave. Dave, how are you doing today?
Were you just talking about the Lions? Is that what I heard? I had no idea that when I joined the show that you would be talking about the Lions. It was very coincidental. Good to see you both, Joe and Tom. I heard what you said. I think the Lions team total may be the best bet individual team total of the entire board, right? You get a team on the road in Washington after a road win. And you've seen these things happen so many times. The clock strikes midnight and the team becomes a pumpkin. I don't know how they're going to stop them. I think the only team that stops the Lions from scoring minimum 35 points, 5 touchdowns in a game is the Lions. Turnovers, things like that. Home game, Saturday night, they're going to score a lot of points.
Absolutely a ton of points. The question is, does this game hit the over, though? Because how much are we expecting on the Commander side of things? Because Dave, we've done plenty of Lions games this year. We know the Lions can get out and score, as you said, with the best. And the only team that's going to stop the Lions is the Lions. But how much are we going to be seeing from the Commanders' offense? That's the big question, because that will determine if this game goes over or not. Because the Lions winning this game, 34-10, 34, we're getting to that number where it actually may hit the under.
Yeah.
Correct. I think that's why, the more people you talk to, the more they feel better about the Lions team total rather than the game total.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a really strong way to go with the Lions. So that's 33.5. It is so high. Do you think then the Lions are covering the 9.5 spread?
I want to believe that a dog's going to cover. And when you get the dog with the most points, you're looking for every reason to take them. I think it's going to come down to maybe Washington scoring late to get a backdoor cover. I mean, the first half of this game, the Lions are going to be just electric. Expect them to score multiple times. So I expect Washington to be playing from behind. I don't think the dog can win, so I don't like to take the dog plus the points in that spot.
Okay, guys, we'll be back. We'll get Dave's best bets and the rest of the games after the break here on Game Time Decision.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl, but the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think GameTime Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Talk about it failing and always putting the square peg into the round hole. We're going to run it. We're going to try and play these lower scoring games. They didn't score over 17 points in the 5 straight losses.
There's a chance for the Ravens to exercise every single demon on their way to a Super Bowl. But it also means the path is very difficult and things are only getting started.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Game Time Decisions. Over here on the grid, I'm Joe Madden, joined by Tom Vecchio. And Dave Sharapan's being kind enough to join us for one more segment here before he gets ready for in-game live. So we are looking at the divisional games this weekend. Dave, we looked at the Washington Commanders versus the Detroit Lions. So let's jump into this matchup here, the Houston Texans versus the Kansas City Chiefs. What are you liking in this one?
I like the under. I really think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I got it like 27-10, maybe 27-13. I don't think the Texans have much success offensively. And listen, I mean, the last 2 years, do you need any more opportunities to try to bet against the Chiefs and try to beat the Chiefs? And now you're going to do it in a week where they have a bye week. They got completely healthy, and Andy Reid's record after a bye week, we all know it. We've all heard it. I don't know. I feel more comfortable if I was getting 10, if I was going to take the Texans, and then you maybe lose the game, 20-10, 24-14, somewhere in that neighborhood. But I don't know, Joe. I can't see Houston going in there and winning. A lot of people that I know think this is the dog of the week, though. If you look at the 4 games, well, forget about Buffalo and Baltimore. That's a pick-em game. But they're giving – the best opportunity for a dog to win outright is Houston. I understand it. I just don't agree with it.
Okay, because my take on this game is a 24-17 kind of Chiefs win, where we're getting right to that total. Yeah, again, the cover line is going to be super in play. As I said, Dave, how many times on the pregame shows have I said a team wins, but they don't cover, and we're going to get right at that number, which is kind of the vibe I get from the Chiefs. And I said this to Joe throughout the entire week. I desperately hope that the Texans get out to an early lead, and the Chiefs' live number will be -2.5 or -3 because they'll cover that number, but they're not going to cover 8.5. So let's get to that Ravens-Bills game. Game of the week, game of the season, whatever you want to call it. A lot of weather potential in that, and I love the under in that game. I absolutely love the under. I love the under on Lamar passing attempts. I think this has to be a Derrick Henry game. Last time I saw was 19.5 rushing attempts, a number that we have spoken about numerous times. They're going to hang the 19.5 compared to the 20.5. I love the over on his attempts. I love the under on Lamar's attempts.
That all makes perfect sense. That's exactly the way I think if you like the Ravens, that game has to play out. But if there's a season, the way the season's gone, if there's a way for the Bills to actually win a big game at home, I think it sets up for this one. I really do. And only because, not because of Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is the difference in why you should like the Ravens more. But I think Lamar winning on the road in that freezing cold, all that stuff, the home field may be the biggest in football as far as like an odds maker, we might make this bigger than anywhere else, especially in January at this time. So I don't know. I've been back and forth. Beginning of the week, I like the Ravens. Later in the week, I had Carver on the show and another guy, Tommy the Lip, another Buffalo guy, and they really made their case and are kind of swaying me. I don't know. I'm doing in-game live on Sunday for the first game with the Eagles and the Eagles and the Rams. So we'll talk about it. I'm sure me and Blewett will go back and forth and back and forth. As of right now, I'm siding with the Bills.
Okay, I don't blame you for siding with the Bills there. You look at Josh Allen and you give him that ball with the clock ticking down, and he is a quarterback that I can trust to drive down that field. He's looked like Superman. He's come out phenomenally strong on the season, and it's hard to step in front of him there. I'm like you, Dave. I've been going back and forth. I think I'm going to count on Lamar and Derrick Henry to be able to get it done, but I love where you're both going with that under, because I do think defensive battle out here, as well as a solid run game out of both of these teams. But you're going to be live on In-Game Live for the Rams versus the Eagles. What are you looking at going into this one?
It's all about, to me, whether the Rams can run the ball or not. If the Rams can run the ball, control the clock, and limit the possessions, they're going to be in this game. If they can't run the ball and the Eagles get to turn loose on the Rams. Now, the Rams came out and looked like Ed Henry and a spread offense, and remember the Titans in the first half against the Vikings, and they didn't have a clue. There was no adjustment. Nothing happened, and they were able to just kind of cruise in the second half. I think the game goes under. I think it falls right around the number, but the weather and the emotion of what the Rams have had to do finally catches up. This could be the game, though, Vecchio. The Eagles win and don't cover. 24-21, 20-17, something like that, the multiple ways that we can get within that 6. This is the game I think the dog has the best shot of not only covering the spread, but an outside shot of winning. I just think it's a close game, and what I've seen from the Eagles offense the last few weeks, not conservative, but if Saquon doesn't hit a big play, I don't think there's going to be a lot of long hitters in this one.
So this is now convincing me that I should hold on to my Rams NFC future ticket and not cash out, not hedge.
You said it a long time ago. You like to be right. You were right back then when you made the play. All these people on the socials were coming at you saying, what is this kid talking about? They weren't listening, Tom. They weren't listening. You had it. You should do it. But do you think they can go and win in Detroit if they win?
Absolutely not.
No chance. No chance. I agree with you 100%. They ain't going to Detroit to win in the game. So maybe find an exacta or something. Put Detroit with somebody in the the AFC, maybe 2. I don't know. Can Houston go and win the AFC championship? I'll ask you first, Joe. If Houston upsets Kansas City, that big game Sunday is for the home game to host the AFC championship. Yeah. Do you think Houston has a shot of going into Buffalo or Baltimore and winning a game?
No. I have a better shot of taking on a grizzly bear than the Houston Texans do of taking it. So, yeah, it's true.
No shot.
Dave, top player prop this weekend? You got one for us?
Let me think. Derrick Henry to score anytime touchdown? I'll join the crowd.
I like it. Dave's got to get over to get ready for In-Game Live. Tom and I'll be back for one more segment here, so don't go anywhere on the grid.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl, but the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Talk about it failing and always putting the square peg into the round hole. We're going to run it. We're going to try and play these lower scoring games. They didn't score over 17 points in the 5 straight losses.
There's a chance for the Ravens to exercise every single demon on their way to a Super Bowl. But it also means the path is very difficult and things are only getting started.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Game Time Decisions over here on the grid. I'm Joe Madden, joined by Tom Vecchio. We are here with you till the top of the hour, but don't go anywhere after we leave. You'll have Dave Sharapan and Scott Wetzel taking you through in-game live for the next couple of hours. So make sure you do stick around. But Tom, in this last segment, let's look at a couple of things that are kicking off at this 8 o'clock hour out there on the hardwood, what you're liking. The Toronto Raptors and the Milwaukee Bucks will be the first game to kick off at 8:10. We do have the Orlando Magic, though, and the Boston Celtics in action. Just want to see if you want to jump in live on anything there. Both you and I were liking the Magic to come in. That spread's still 14.5. Would you suggest that if people don't have a bet?
It's 14.5, but it's minus 132. So I personally wouldn't get there at, minus 132. If it moves to 15.5 and you get a minus 110, that's fine, but I wouldn't lay the minus 132. It is 45-39 in that game in favor of the Celtics. We see the Timberwolves out to a bit of an early lead, 20-13 over the Knicks. Then, like you said, for the games coming up, the Raptors have been running a little bit hot as of late. And let's just call it what it is, Joe. They're not very good this year. Give me the Bucks laying 11 in that one. And then for the Pelicans and the Jazz, I like CJ McCollum under 19.5 points. It was minus 128. For that one. I just think they need to get Zion going on offense. And then for Charlotte at Chicago, I do like Mark Williams under 11.5 rebounds. Again, that was also sitting at minus 136.
Okay, I like where you're going with those. The Brooklyn Nets and the LA Lakers. I love this late game, and I do think the Lakers cover that spread of 11. So right now, laying the 11 with the Lakers is coming in at minus 114. I'm also going to look at the under between OKC and the Dallas Mavericks. That number coming in at 223. I just don't see that many points coming in. Now, the Mavericks are a 5.5-point dog at home, and I would grab them plus the points as well. So that's the matchups we're liking out there on the hardwood. Tom, let's just quickly update everyone on the ice and any live betting opportunities we have out there. The Vegas Golden Knights and the Carolina Hurricanes still 0-0 game in the second period. Kind of shocking to me. We have a 4.5 to the over at plus 106. With both of us liking the over in this game going in, are you willing to get there, or do you think the game script has changed in your mind?
They should be able to get there. I mean, Vegas has got 13 shots is pretty good in one period, especially against a Canes defense that is like I don't want to say historically known, but man, since Brindamore has been there, like their defense has been known for suppressing shots, and seeing Vegas with 13, they really should have a goal at this point. So I don't mind. Was it 4.5 and you're getting plus 106? Yeah. That's okay. It's pushing it though. If I would not lay any minus money at over 4.5, but you're getting plus money over 4.5, I think that's fine. And then the Sabres are up 1-0 over the Penguins, not getting the goals that we expect in that game, just despite having two terrible defenses.
Any chance you jump on the Pittsburgh Penguins here? They were the dog coming in, but plus 186 on the money line in a game where we just don't trust either defense, right? Like, I'm shocked this is another 1-0 game.
It is. I am shocked with that. So I still have Crosby in this game. If I'm taking any shot on this, I honestly would, not just the money line, but man, the three-way money line for the Penguins, which means they have to win in regulation, is plus 350. And obviously that's a huge number, which means they would just have to score 2 goals and win in regulation. But I don't trust the Sabres on defense. So that could be like a very small, like quarter unit play at plus 350. Because if they tie this game up, which can happen against the Sabres, that number is going to plummet. It's not going to, and their regular money line, if you don't play it safer, would obviously not be nearly plus 186. So I don't mind taking the Penguins live just because I don't trust the Sabres at all.
And definitely a nice way to look. And I know that you're looking ahead tomorrow to the Devils. I just want to quickly mention out there on the hardwood, in college basketball, Providence has taken an early lead over Villanova. They are at halftime. So this is a 37-32 lead for Providence. I like Villanova. In they were laying close to double digits. So I will come back in on Villanova laying 3.5 at minus 104 in that matchup. And looking at those later games, Indiana versus Ohio State, I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I'm riding the under at 150.5. I love Ohio State's defense and what they're going to bring to the table. And then DePaul versus Georgetown. I think DePaul is too big of a road dog out here. I think they're going to be able to defend against those threes, even though they're not strong at defending. Georgetown doesn't get a lot of threes on the board. So give me DePaul plus the 5.5. Any last minute touchdown scores for this weekend, Tom?
Hopkins, or you could roll with Kelsey. That the narrative, that's fine. But really do like DeAndre Hopkins. Find him in the touchdown or over 29.5 receiving yards for the Chiefs.
Okay, guys, don't go anywhere. In-game live will be up next with Dave Sheridan and Scott Wetzel. Thank you. Thanks, Tom, and thanks everyone for joining us here on Game Time Decisions on the Grid.